Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. Where's the best place to be this weekend for motorsport action? Because there was plenty of it. Was it hypercars at Le Mans? Was it Moto GP at Mugello? TTs on the Isle of Man? Or NASCAR in California? I can tell you, and there's only two words, Le Mans, because it was absolutely unbelievable.
What? I kept on catching up on the telly and watching another few rounds. They would go do something else, and I kept on wanting to come back into the room to put the telly back on because it was just evolving so fast. It was just the most dramatic, the celebrating 100 years, 1923 when it began.
Did you go to the first? Did you go to the first one in 1923?
No. Come on, I'm slightly older than you.
But joking aside, Tiff, you are a 14-time Le Mans competitor, LMP1 every time. I can't believe it. I like you anyway. Don't tell too many people that, but I've got so much respect for you because I really got into Le Mans for the first time ever. This year, I was mesmerised by it. Oliver, my 12-year-old son, kept saying, "Come on, Dad, let's go and do something in the garden. It's a nice day." And I was just, "I'll be there in a minute. And I couldn't pull myself away from it. It was incredible.
But there was so much to it. We started off with the balance of power controversy. Because Toyota had been given a bit more weight than Ferrari. Were given a bit more weight. Than
Ferrari got 24 kilograms. What did Toyota get?
53 or something, or 38.
Oh, okay.
I forget. We mentioned that last week, but I forget when my notes are from last week. So they were a bit miffed, that they'd had their advantage taken away. And of course, we had the safety cars, the new safety car system, which we'll mention later, that got a bit of stick, slow zones that seemed to cause more crashes and save them, thunderstorms. And the number of crashes, the number of top drivers and real big names that were putting it in the wall. I've never seen so many individual crashes going on.
I was going to say that to you. Why is that? Because it's...
I don't know. I know. It's the new world. Everyone's realising maybe there's professional drives going. Everybody's trying to impress. I think it's more of a sprint race. Well, I know it's way more of a sprint race than when I was driving it. You don't save the gearbox or don't go over the curbs. You just drive these things flat out. So the amount of sort of traffic dodging that goes on to squeezing through narrow gaps. But it all started with poor Jack Aitken, the Cadillac, lap number one of the pro drivers. Okay, it was damp track offline and you're on slicks. But he tried to go out. His teammate made a mistake in front of him, so he tried to sort of go wide on the exit, and he's in the wall. And you think, wow, well, that would never have happened in the olden days, for a top driver like that. And then, of course, we had our first full-course safety car, which I think everybody's pretty upset about. It seems ridiculous what they're trying to do. All the commentators and everyone was justifying it by saying, once upon a time, a car that was closing in on the leader got split by the triple safety car system they've used up until now, and so lost a third of a lap and therefore couldn't ever win the race. So they're sort of saying they must prevent that happening. But what they do by using the full American system, which is now what they're doing, which is what the Europeans didn't like, now if you've eked out a lead, everyone loses their hard-earned leads. It's not as if it's just one team that sort of gets caught out by a poor pace car, safety car, whichever. So I don't know. It is American. It's what they do at Daytona. It's what IndyCar, NASCAR. It's a fully American system. But it's all that reordering them into packs as well, letting all the GT cars go back. We had this incredible build-up to the 100th anniversary, amazing starting lap. And 6 minutes later, we got a full course yellow that took 23 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say the first half an hour was just like, what's going on?
So I'd go back to the triple system. Occasionally, yes, it will create a gap that would, open a gap. But this idea that everybody that's got any sort of gap at all that they've earned over 6 hours or 12 hours, eked out. It's like Lewis Hamilton with Max, the same famous, Dabu Abbey, in that Grand Prix, he got a 20-second
Say that again?
Dabu. So I don't like that particularly. I don't think giving away all the hard-earned advantage. I don't know what would quite happen if they had to have a full course safety car 20 minutes before the end of the race. Are they going to go around like that for 20 minutes and then all walk across the line? So Anyway, so let's get back.
Let's hope not, because let's hope not, because the finish at Le Mans is spectacular, isn't it? Remember the days they used to run on the grid? That was always on the start finish line.
I didn't do that. But, I mean, I just make notes. I mean, what was going on? You know, I mean,
tell me some of your highlights.
Well, I got here. You know, I mean, there's a number of people that crashed half the time, but that thunderstorm of rain that came down at the Porsche.
That was bizarre. That was sort of around about 10 p.m.
No, it was early. It was one earlier in the daylight. Then it rained again at night.
Oh, okay.
I think the one where they're all aquaplaning off, the initial one.
Yes.
Where it seemed incredibly lucky that there were very few cars on that bit of the circuit.
Wasn't it ever? Because that would have been carnage.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the one of the Cadillacs went off, the Glickenhaus went off, a couple of Ferraris. One Ferrari disappeared off down the escape road, still doing about 100 miles an hour.
It was a GT-AM car, it was going far too fast.
I don't know what
for those who didn't see it, so it's down the hill. I don't know what corner, Arnage maybe.
Well, it was entering the Porsche curbs. It was entering the Porsche curbs.
Thank you. So it's down the hill, and people were braking too late in the wet. And of course, when cars spin, they all go all on slicks, and they all end up in the same place. You all go down the same place in the same part of the hill. And there was only 3 cars, so it was so lucky that the majority of the cars weren't there. Otherwise, it would have been a massive pile-up.
All crawling back to the pits, just trying to flounder their way back to the pits to get some
because,
tires.
Of course, there's a difference now with the tyres. You've either got intermediates or you've got slicks. You haven't got anything in between.
But then, the next on the list of professionals, like Ricky Taylor stuck his LMP2 car into the wall, and Jean-Eric Verne stuck his Peugeot into the gravel. And about a time,
it was just
leading.
Incredible. Yeah, I know.
The list goes on and on. Peugeot with their ugly brick, but their ugly brick actually looked quite pretty. You had that awful grey colour. They had a wonderful colour scheme on it, which brought it alive, and you didn't notice the shape of the brick so much. They were leading out of sun. What Peugeot lead? What's going to happen next?
Peugeot were leading on merit. It wasn't a case of someone's got lucky or whatever. But still, they're there.
But then we had a privateer Porsche leading, and this is like Group C. This is the other dream of hypercars.
Penske,
No, the Yota Porsche.
Yota. Sorry, Yota.
Yeah,
Yota.
The Penskes are the official factory cars.
Yes, Yota. Yeah.
So the idea you can buy, the trouble is buying a hypercar is about 100 times more than buying a Porsche 962, which so many privateers did, as we revealed in our story for TV series, and you revealed on our YouTube channel, where you could buy a Porsche 962 and hope to win. Well, this showed that you can buy a Porsche hypercar and maybe win, but Wi-Fi, I don't know how to pronounce his Wi-Fi Yiffy, unfortunately, had a huge down the bottom of the Porsche curves. And then we had the leading Ferrari in the gravel as well. Then we had Pierre Guidi. Yeah, I think he came down to the first chicane, came out of the pits. He was just out on slightly colder tyres, and there was a couple of cars. This is when it started drizzling again. He was in the gravel. Then we had these 2 slow zone crashes that affected 2 of the leaders. So first it was Sebastian Bourdais. They got rear-ended and spun round and round and off down the hill. And then Kobayashi in the Toyota got rear-ended coming into these slow zones.
So these slow zones, for those who don't know, there's 9 slow zones now around Le Mans, and I think they work quite well. But what happens is, of course, the hypercars
from getting rear-ended, the
hypercars can brake so much later. Their braking distance is, say, 50 feet, whereas the GT-AMs, their braking distance is probably 3 times that. So but then the GT-AMs are still following so close, and then the hypercars will anchor on their brakes, and they just rear-end them. Oof.
Imagine if you were on slicks following someone on wets, and the guy on wets goes into the slow zone.
Yeah.
I don't know how well they're marked. Obviously, every driver knows. So there's 9 zones. So there's 9 different areas you've got to remember. And obviously, you get radioed, you get told slow zone here. But the one that I think caused most crashes was after the first chicane, where it seems to be over the crest. It seems to be like on the crest was where the slow zone began. I mean, I don't know, it's about 80 kilometers an hour. I think it's 50 miles an hour. And I said on Twitter, I think you maybe need a sort of pre-zone, which is like 120 kilometre speed limit, and then go into the 80. Because to go straight from, could be 200 miles an hour.
It's only the same as a pit lane, though, isn't it?
How do you judge it?
We don't judge it, do you? You press a button. There'll be a limiter.
It can't limit till you've got down to that speed. Yeah, but the limiter doesn't slow you.
Yeah, I guess that's up to you to anchor it on, to judge it. So absolutely. So, but I think it was just a bit of a it's a learning curve. People now know if you're coming into a slow zone and you know on your radio that you're coming into a slow
zone. They've had them for
zone.
years, to be fair. They've been there for years. It's not actually new at Le Mans. So the slow zones have been established, but just into this year, everybody seems to be pressing harder, all the pressure to not lose any time. I mean, the slow zones are good. I agree. It's a great system, but I think maybe this suddenly slowing from top speed to 80 clicks causes
I thought it was brilliant. It was so funny seeing the big JCBs and stuff there, and the cars are going past, but they're all going properly slow. So, but I thought that was not a bad thing, other than getting rear-ended if you're especially if you're one of the leaders as well. But that was hair-raising, nighttime, raining into a slow zone, and then bang, 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 cars are just going into the back of each other. But very scary.
One Ferrari then got delayed, and so by half distance, it was pretty much down to one Ferrari against one Toyota. It was going to be head to head.
Just take you back to the first sort of hour and a half. There were 5 cars in a hypercar series going down the Mulsanne Straight, and they were within probably half a second of each other. But less than that. They were literally nose to tail.
The two Ferraris were almost wheel banging. The Ferraris were using. They were going into the sort of the edge of the track, which isn't properly tarmac, trying to get by each other.
I know. What was all that about?
To watch.
It was 24. My son Oliver, he came and said, "Dad, why is it?" He wasn't paying much attention. He said, "It's still on 22 minutes. You've been watching it for ages." I said, "No, that's 22 hours to go." And he couldn't comprehend. He's quite good at mechanical things. He couldn't comprehend that these cars can drive flat out for 24 hours. It's remarkable, really. Like you said, back in your day, you have to protect the gearbox. You have to have some mechanical sympathy for the car. Now it is literally flat out from the word go. It's nuts. It's a testament to these manufacturers and how good modern cars are.
But then I've got a list of more pro drivers that crashed. Again, this is what I can't believe. Jan Magnussen put his LMP2 on the wall. Danny Kvyat wrote off his LMP2. Kevin Estrin took one of the Porsches, Penske Porsches, into the wall. And I remember seeing poor Ben Barnicoat, who's only a young 25, 26-year-old British driver beginning to make a career professionally in America. And he put his into the wall down Porsche curves. He was following 2 more other cars. He just clipped the curb on the inside. They're horrible looking, this LMP2, or even like Formula 1 cars now. Drivers seem to be able to catch the first slide, then they just snap in the other direction and go straight into walls.
Yeah.
And it's what happened to Jack Aitken on the opening lap. He just had a little bit of wheel spin on the way out the first chicane. And it seems as soon as you correct it, you overcorrect it. I don't know what drivers do to prevent this overcorrection. And Ben Barnicoat, it just stepped down a little bit. And the next thing, he's just turned sharp right. He was sitting there, he had his head in his hands.
Awful. Because it's not career. Just you.
You've been there for a week, and you've been to the test weekend, and you've lived with your other 2 drivers, your team, and so you just feel you let everybody down. But there was just so much of that going on.
But I did see with a couple of the amateurs. It was not so much in the race, but there was a couple of ones where you would it goes and you would take more of the runoff, or you go over the track limit, whereas they tried to bring it back on track too early. But that wasn't.
That was a Fassbender. Did you see his shunted his Porsche? He went stage left. Yeah, in fact, he crashed in a very common crash before they had all that car park at the bottom of the Porsche curves. The last left-hander was the trickiest, nasty adverse camber with a gnarly curb on the exit. Yeah, it's a lot of crashes used to happen like he did because he didn't make use of the extra runoff. He actually tried to sort of stay on the track and not do track limits, and ended up losing control and slamming the wall. And they all drive these things back. With this Techno Pro or tyre walls, they have these massively high-speed accidents and then drive them back to the pits. Sometimes they're on 3 wheels, but
they're so stiff, the suspensions. Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, I thought I was a bit cynical. I thought Alex Brundle was there in the commentary box because of his dad, but actually, wow, he was bloody brilliant.
Absolutely,
he was absolutely brilliant. Hats off to him. His knowledge, his vocabulary, what his sort of how he injected with various words and phrases, and he's been there and done it. So hats off to Alex Brundle. Big respect there. I loved a couple of the interviews. Albert Costa. He did an amazing interview with I think Italian guy, just so passionate, so enthusiastic. But my favourite one was a chap called Ben Keating. He was in a Corvette in the
he's the
GT
am. He's the am. The
He
bald-headed
is,
am.
exactly,
The rich
bald-headed,
American.
61-year-old Texan, owns car dealerships. And I loved it. This for me is what Le Mans is all about. So he said, yeah, I wasn't going to drive in the night. I had no plans to do any night stuff. I don't like driving in the night. And then somebody woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You got to be out at 2 because we got a problem with the other driver. I think he was ill.
Someone
or
got ill. I read that.
So he did a triple stint. He wasn't even going to drive at night. He did a triple stint from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. And he came back and he smiled and he was just, he said it was the most amazing experience. But that's
dream.
Brilliant. Imagine that,
course,
someone that against the top pros in the world, the fastest hypercars, LMP1 cars in the world.
He's out there. And of course, they go on to win. We'll come to results later, but that Corvette lost 2 laps early on with a shock absorber failure in the opening half hour. So you thought they were out of it, but no, you keep fighting back, you keep fighting. but the last half of the race was really just all about the battle up front between Toyota.
It was.
And the amazing quadruple. Brendan Hartley, can you do another stint? He's done 3 stints now. I don't know how long they are now. They used to be 50-odd minutes in my day, but I think they're now. I think it's shorter, about 40. Now, I think now they use the fuel that they got less fuel allocation and stuff. It might only be 40. But even so, we got to do 4 stints. And this is in the middle of the day in the heat. And I remember trying to sort of battle and stay ahead of a factory Nissan where we finished 3rd, And I was just knackered. And I was just trying to do 1 stint and hand over to someone else. And the fitness and the speed. He did a quadruple. Then they gave this Japanese star, didn't they? The final 2 hours. This was their master plan to get Ryo Hirakawa in. And sadly, they told him to go for it. I think he was 16 seconds behind the Ferrari when he came out, but binned it on about the 3rd lap. And apparently, Brendan had warned him about rear brakes locking. And this is the trouble with hypercars, with this regen, brake-by-wire technology. There are times when you can get caught out by the technology, suddenly putting more brakes on the back. Surprisingly.
Indeed, that's what my best mate Alex Brundle said. He did say that. He said about the brake-by-wire that the feel is very different now. So you haven't got that feel, but that'll take a bit of getting used to. And also, Tiff, they said about. It was a big shame, but it was so exciting when they were neck and neck the whole way.
In the middle of the night, though, they lost time. They got hit a squirrel. They're blaming the squirrel because it
not that old chestnut.
That's when they changed the front end. So a squirrel, and then had a bit of debris in the front. They did have a couple of problems in the night, the Toyota. But even so, I think everybody wanted the Ferrari to win. Come on, Toyota, you had it all your own way. Maybe you shouldn't be given a weight penalty that stops you winning your 28th consecutive Le Mans. I don't know how many they won now. It's about 4 in a row or something.
5 in a row. That would have been the 6th, yeah.
So, I think everyone would. So to see, Alessandro Pierguidi, Italian driver, who's never been a Grand Prix star or anything, but now he's a winner of Le Mans, cruises the car home.
We had a Brit in the team as well, of course.
Yeah, James Collado, another kid. He's like so many of our youngsters that wanted to be a Grand Prix star. He did Formula 2 and Formula 3 and was really on the pace. He had a test, I think, in Formula 1, but it didn't come. So he got a GT drive like so many of our youngsters are doing now. He was 10 years in a Ferrari GT, earning good money, but not a name that the household would ever know of, even though he won his class at Le Mans and he won championships in the Ferrari GT. But now he's a proper Le Mans winner. And it was great to see, the other Toyota came through 2nd. The 2 Cadillacs, I thought, were amazing, 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, they were.
Did you see the formation finish? All 3 of them in a line.
Absolutely bloody brilliant.
Formation finish. And of course, in the 3rd place Cadillac, there were 2 Brits, Alex Lean and Richard Westbrook, along with Kiwi Earl Bamber. So again, we have more Brits on the podium in the Cadillac team. The 2nd Ferrari finished 5th. And then I thought the Glickenhauses earned a good thumbs up. 6th
Fair
and 7th.
play to them. Yeah, they had some early troubles.
A crazy American film producer wanting to take his cars to Le Mans.
Crazy in a nice way, Jim, by the way. We love you.
Yeah.
You know we love you, yeah.
Eccentric. Peugeot really disappointed. 8th was their best of surviving Peugeot. Again, their years.
Especially because they were up there. They were up there so much at the beginning, first quarter, first third of the race.
Surviving Porsche was 9th. And then we go to the LMP2s. 10th overall, the LMP2 winner. 26th overall was that Corvette that won the GT class, GT Am. And I made special mention, I think, 30th overall and 4th in class, not on the podium.
I was gutted.
Was the Iron Dames,
gutted.
the all-female crew who
Oh,
were
I was
right in the
gutted.
mix. The whole race,
They
were leading a
were.
bit all the race.
Well, the commentators' curse, really. The commentators, it's theirs to lose now. If they're there, they're going to win.
They had to change the brake. Had to brakes for an hour to go, and they missed the podium by 5 seconds. 5 seconds. If they'd done the brake pad change, or each driver had been a millionth of a second faster for every lap they did over the 24 hours.
I was gutted, but they'll be back, and good for them. I know Sarah Bovey. She's such good fun and so passionate about it. So I don't know the other girls.
Some bloke called Ryan Cullen that I think we know finished 16th overall, 7th in class. Well done, Ryan.
7th in class. Well done, Ryan. He had a good drive. He was the silver driver. He was faster than the other silver driver, which is always a good
team.
sign.
Yeah, always the inter-team. And some bloke called Button was 39th of the 40 finishes.
But I think he probably had the biggest smile on his face, the Team 56 with that NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. They did 20 hours, and they were quicker than all the GT cars. So it was quite a good pace between the LMP2s and the GTs. But they had gearbox to change, I think, after 20 hours, and so limped home 39th of the 40 finishes.
So what class were they in officially?
Their own class. They're Garage 56.
Okay.
They don't have a class. But in the GT AMs, I mean, there are only 9 out of the 21 finished. So all those Porsches, I mean, you kept on seeing another Porsche hitting the barrier, another Ferrari hitting the barrier, or slamming into the back of a Cadillac, or slamming into the back of a Toyota. So the GT, I mean, it's a huge gap between a professional driving a hypercar and an amateur, living the dream driving a GT car. And there will be always accidents between the two, because the pro expects you all to leap out of the way. And the AM is told, hold your line, let them go round you. But
that's what happened most of the time. I saw. This is the first time I've seen this, where everybody held their line, even the amateurs, the slower cars, and the pro had to go round, unless unless it was maybe the two fighting for the Toyota and the Ferrari fighting for the lead, perhaps.
So it was epic. Had everything. Had absolutely everything.
It was epic. Any major highlight or anything? I mean, it was 100th year. I saw lots of people there that you would have raced with over those years.
Yeah. I don't know what a highlight. I don't know, just Ferrari leading and Toyota. I don't know the real highlight. I think Porsche leading, the privateer Porsche leading for a while. I quite like that, because I said,
that's nostalgia for you, isn't it?
Privateer. The fact you could buy a car and win Le Mans, or at least we finished third. We were top Porsche. It's just, that's what I love about sports car racing. But the problem is they're so expensive nowadays. These hypercars, there's so much technology in them.
Well, then you've got to have a whole team to run it
many
as well.
people, not many people are going to be able to afford to buy one of these cars. But there are still the teams out there that got that sort of money, like Jota, and I think it's great. So maybe that's the highlight.
Our viewers have hopefully have watched our video that we did on the Le Mans. On the 962 and 956. Yeah. But if you haven't, you should watch that. But it just makes you realise, I knew it was special what I was doing, and being around all you ex-drivers and getting to drive a lap as well. But actually now seeing that makes you realise how unbelievably special it is. And of course, that was the pinnacle of technology 40 years ago. It's the same as the current cars now. It was the pinnacle.
I love all the garage shots as well. When you see the crew,
brilliant.
Then you see when their cars crash, they're like looking at the telly and, oh no.
Gutted, what are we doing?
They're already starting to run around the garage. Looking, where's the bits? Where's the front corner? What are we going to need? Look at the telly, we're going to need a rear wing, we're going to need a front nose. And then the joy when it goes wrong, and the pressure when it's not going right. It's just the whole thing for a week. It's all your team, your crew, and you're all in tears at the end when you just finish the race and when you win it, or when you dropped out. So
I can't imagine that you've done 14 Le Mans at the highest level. That is just epic, Tiff. Absolutely
very
epic.
Very lucky.
I'm glad that I really was. I've really made an effort to watch it this year, and I'm glad I did. But next year, we need to go.
We need to go. We need to be there. So the rest of motorsport,
we need a sponsor first.
The rest of the motorsport almost pales into insignificance.
There was some good stuff going on, though. There was some.
Well, there wasn't really. You see, Moto GP, we always rave about it, but I'm sorry, I just have to say, it wasn't. They were at Mugello. They were the most beautiful, greatest Moto GP track, and for some reason, there just wasn't the excitement of the racing. They had the sprint race, was a bit of fun and games on the Saturday, but because it was almost raining, and Francesco Bagnaia, this dominant Ducati rider, he led for a bit, then he backed off because it was spitting. Then as soon as he realised it wasn't really raining much, he went back, won the sprint race, led home a Ducati 1-5. Sadly, the Honda rider Johan Mir didn't even start because he had a shunt in testing. And then the opening laps of the sprint race, fellow Honda man Alex Rins and often broke his leg and he's in hospital and won't be probably out for the next race. So drama with the accidents, but not that much for the race and the Grand Prix itself. Jack Miller did one of his own quick starts on the KTM, but Bagnaia was still back in the lead and cruised home. I mean, they're all close, but no real dicing going on. They led home a Ducati 1-4. But I suppose the biggest story of the Grand Prix was Marc Marquez falling again. And I don't know, we always explain and we excuse him because the Honda's not the best bike. And you talk about Rins and Mir, both on Hondas, both crashing out, earlier on. It's obviously difficult, and Mark won't accept that the bike isn't as quick as he is. But when he fell down, it was the last great big long left, I think, at Mugello. But he was trying to go around the outside of someone. He was offline. Now, obviously, you don't get as much tire rubble as, marbles as you do in cars. But, then the front folded under him, so he's in the gravel. He sort of stands up and looks at the bike, like blaming the bike. And well done, Mark. You were way offline, trying to go around the outside of another bike on a Honda, known not to be the best of bikes. Anyway, so he was down.
Well, you can't get away with it nowadays with data. You can't get away with it. Back in your day, there's something happened to the steering or whatever, but you can't get away with it these days with all the data. They know.
Anyway, I think Francesco Bagnaia is about to have a second world title this year by the way it's all going in Moto GP. And of course, Mugello is actually Ducati's test track, so they know that place very well. Moto 2, again, we had a bit of a processional race, well, mainly because poor old Sam Lowe, who qualified third. Sam's really on form this year after a terrible last year when he kept on throwing it off into the scenery. But he was taken down on the opening lap by the Spaniard Alonso Lopez. Just came inside him on the opening lap on a really fast left-hander. You thought, what are you doing, boys? So down went Lowe. So Lopez got the famous penalty lap for the stewards. I'd have disqualified him. The move he did. The poor bloke, I almost feel sorry for him. He went through the long loop, but he tried too hard for the long loop and fell off the long loop into the gravel bit. And then he came out. So he lost so much time on the long loop because he'd been in the gravel. But because he didn't complete the loop in the correct manner, they gave him another one. So he went further down the field. But it was Pedro Costa who was the leader when the crash happened behind him with Lopez and Button. And he disappeared off into the distance, had an easy win. Jake Dixon, in his usual, qualified sixth and always goes slow at the start. With nobody, the commentators were discussing whether he sets his bike up for the race rather than qualifying. Because he always comes back at the end of the races and he pinched third position, got a podium, whereas Tony Arbolino was second to keep his championship lead. But Pedro Costa is closing, and he's closing on a Moto GP contract this week because KTM, I think, have got an option on him until July the 6th, but then they haven't got any spaces next year. And after July the 6th or something, Acosta can be approached by other manufacturers. So he wants to stay with KTM, but if they can't give him a MotoGP ride, he might go elsewhere. Moto 3 wasn't... They had a 5-bike breakaway. Instead of the usual 15 bikes at Mugello going down in one bunch every lap. Qualifying was a bit weird. A lot of riders got slung to the back because they all slowed out a bit like Formula One, but they're not allowed to. They all weave around, look at their show, trying to find a mate to slipstream with in Moto 3. So loads of penalties, which probably helped our British boys. Scott Ogden at his best qualified 9th. Josh Watley was up in 19th, but Scott dropped to 13th in the end. He was in the second bunch. After the 5, there was like a huge gap, and then there was a 15-bike bunch. In fact, Scott was only 2 seconds off of 6th place, finishing 13th as the pack came across the line. So I mean, the Moto 3 was close, but not the massive overtaking. So, beautiful, scenic, wonderful to watch, but just not quite the excitement a Moto GP weekend normally delivers.
Well, speaking of beautiful and scenic and wonderful to watch, Susie Perry, thought she was magnificent, as always.
As always.
That's
We
a
will
terrible.
absolutely.
That's a terrible link, isn't it?
We
Why?
will
Why don't?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, the best bike racing was, of course, the Isle of
exactly.
Man. If you're a bike fan, that's where you should have been. I mean, I don't know all the results and stuff that I hadn't followed or checked.
There were so many different races, weren't there? The Milwaukee
I don't
Seniors.
understand. Oh, I don't know.
Neighbours, dogs, but it was. I don't want to belittle it because Isle of Man TT racing, amazing, and what a spectacle to behold.
So many YouTube, people on a wall filming these things going by, and you hear them disappearing off to the distance. I mean, just
the best one without question. Chris Harrison's was good, but the best one without question was Steve Platter. He's the commentator, ex-British champion, I think.
Standing on the track,
standing on the track, and he knows there's someone coming up. He knows who it is. And he can't help himself. It goes past so fast, feels like it's so close. We both retweeted actually, and he just goes, "Oh Jesus!" and carries on.
But great production by Greenlight Television, a company I've done lots of powerboat racing with and lots of documentaries with over many years. They're based in the Isle of Man. They actually lost the bloody deal to ITV4 or something about 3 or 4 years ago. They've been doing it for years, but they're now back doing it. They did a tremendous job producing and presenting it. Peter Hick,
it's not easy.
Forwards. No.
Hickey.
To follow all those bikes. He was really the biggest name, and 4 wins up to 13. Michael Dunlop got 1 more to make his total 25 wins. He's now 1 behind Uncle Joey, the sad lost Joey Dunlop, who had 26. So Michael Dunlop looking to usurp his uncle as the most winningest TT rider. John McGuinness, 23. Of course, always dangerous. We do have to say there was one fatality, that the only one I've read about anyway, Spanish rider, Raul Torpez Martinez, 46-year-old. It's his 5th TT. He races in those crazy Northern Ireland, the Northwest 200, and he loves doing road races. And sadly, he fell on the 3rd lap of his race and passed away. So we do have to send our regards to Raul Martinez's family and whatever. But you can't say only one death is good, sort of thing. But after some of the years when we've had terrible tragedies there, but still, one death is too many. But the TT, it's a dangerous thing.
It is a dangerous thing. But I wonder
the riders love it. That's when they go.
I wonder when health and safety will take over, and when the health and safety say enough's enough.
Hopefully not. It was a wonderful. Of course, they had good weather, and so many riders were over there, bikers camping, and just a great atmosphere on the island for that 2 weeks of the TT.
Absolutely.
The only other big major racing over the weekend was at NASCAR, which was as dull as ditch water. So I'm glad you didn't watch that.
Well, you say that, but it's only because your man was leading and then he...
No, it's this Sonoma. It's the road course. They do. I don't know how many road courses they do. They do a few streaks of the road course. First of all, apologies. Shane Van Gisbergen wasn't at Sonoma last weekend. He's done the Chicago race in the middle of July. I think I said, look out for Shane, because I'm interested to see how he gets on. But no, it's Sonoma. I don't know. It winds and twists, very spectacular. I mean, just to sit there and watch the cars go through over the crests and down through the dips and through the S's and over the curbs. They're sort of spectacular, watching them all snake through 40 cars. And this year, look at the grandstands, they're a really big crowd as well. But they don't seem to be as crazy as they used to be. So there was only about 1 or 2 yellow caution series. And in fact, it was the first caution that actually turned the race upside down. I think Denny Hamlin was out front, Larson was running about 4th, but they hadn't pitted, or they hadn't pitted. And a whole bunch that had pitted just before the yellow were then moved from like 10th to 15th, became 1st to 10th, as it were. So Martin Truex found himself out front and cruised to victory, chased by Kyle Busch, but there was never really any excitement or danger or overtaking.
I don't think they suit the road courses, I'll be honest with you. I think...
well, they're good at Road America. Road America, they tend to seem to have good runs. They need more yellows at road courses to bunch. Well, they always need more yellows. NASCAR lives on having yellows to bunch them up, as per we see at Le Mans. That's what they want us to do at Le Mans. But the thing about having the full caution that in a NASCAR race, because it's in a 1 mile bowl mainly or 2 mile road course, it doesn't take so long to get them all bunched up to release and start racing again. And of course, they haven't got 3 different classes to put in, bunch them up in. I mean, that will treat. I think the camera's moved. I mean, moving.
Yeah, it has been. But look, let's talking of Le Mans, what a monumental bit of organisation that must be, because you must have multiple race directors and all doing their different shifts and all overlapping and the marshals as well. 24 hours, and they're probably doing, I don't know, 6 hours on, couple hours off, or whatever they do. Just phenomenal. The whole organisation behind that as well. But any event, any motor race event, I saw that the Isle of Man TT said without the Orange Army, the marshals, we wouldn't have an event. But any motor racing event.
Yeah.
But when it's a 24-hour event, it makes it even more wow.
I saw how many it was. The number, it was over 1,000. I don't know how many it was. There were so many marshals needed for the Le Mans.
And they'll all be volunteers.
You need to be fit as well. There's so much debris coming out of the track. The brooms were busy at Le Mans through day and night. But anyway, so it was
why
only
don't they
4
use
main events.
Big blowers.
I know. I keep on tweeting. Get your leaf blowers out. Next time, if you're a British marshal, a lot of British marshals go over there help out. They come from all over the world. Yeah. Take your leaf blower with you in your hand luggage. I'm not sure you get on a plane very easily. And leaf blokes. I mean, it's a much better thing. Little tiny bits of carbon fibre are hard to brush, little flat bits, but they blow away. How do we get onto that subject? We talked
about Le Mans, yellow flags at NASCAR.
Oh, yeah, the system, yeah. Anyway, so not that many events last weekend, but one event that was bigger than 100 events.
It was absolutely amazing. What an amazing centenary for Le Mans. And I'm hooked. And next year I should be going. And we can make a road trip. We'll do a road trip.
But this weekend, I don't know where to look this weekend.
I know.
You could be watching Formula One in Canada, IndyCar at Road America. If there's one IndyCar race you have to watch, it's that one. Road America. Unbelievable. The greatest road course, 4 miles of every different sort of corner. Wonderful. Moto GP at the Sachsenring, which is the most ridiculous sort of bowl. It's like Brands Hatch Club Circuit. There's huge dips and dives, and they mainly turn left, which makes racing a bit different. And always Marc Marquez excels here. I think he's won. When he came back from injury last year, he won the Sachsenring. He's absolutely the master. So maybe Marc Marquez can stay on his bike for a race. There's Aussie supercars down under, the Japanese super formulas in Japan. And back in Britain, I don't know where you want to go. It's just spoiled. You can go to the BTCC at Alton Park, British GT at Snetterton, British Superbikes leaping over the curbs at Knock Hill. There's historic Thruxton, obviously wonderful to go down there for Thruxton weekend. Or you might be watching people race Corvettes around Brands Hatch, where there's an American weekend of festivities at Brands Hatch. Meanwhile, there's no NASCAR.
The only week of the year.
They've just finished 17 non-stop weekends. They have 1 weekend off, and then they got 20 more non-stop weekends. And those F1 boys moaning about it, doing 23 over the year. But yes, so a massive amount of motorsport coming up this weekend, and hope you enjoy it wherever you go or whatever you watch.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us this week, and I'll see you next week. Look forward to it.
Cheers.